Hey everybody, welcome to I Love This Flick, the podcast which we love flicks. I'm Josh Weiser.
I'm Tanner Randall.
And Tanner, have you done your meditations on death today?
I did. I wrote several haikus that I do have prepared. I
Oh,
should not have promised
shit.
that because now by the
God
end of
damn.
the episode, I'm going to need to have a haiku ready. So if you see me
I
scrambling,
am
I
very
will
happy that
have.
that was just a joke and
Uh,
that you don't have any haikus that you're
I don't, but I assure you, by the time this episode is over, I will have a haiku ready. So that's a promise for 2 to 2.5 hours from now.
Oh boy. Anyway, so this is our movie podcast in which we talk about movies that we either have personal fondnesses for, or we have it's a part of the canon or some kind of canon.
We love
uh
flicks. We like talking about flicks people love. It's not always us that love them.
yeah, yeah,
Somebody
I
loves
think,
these movies. Um,
yeah, I
Now
think I do.
that I don't
I
want that to be a spoiler about how I feel about the movie we're talking about today. It's not. I want to stress that up front.
Okay.
But
Well, I know the one that we did a few months, the one that we were just like either didn't like, both didn't like, or were lukewarm on, was Breathless. And then a few months later, Jean-Luc Godard dies, and I blame Tanner for that. I
and I'll say
think
this:
the 98
good
year old
riddance.
French director died because Tanner did not like a movie that he did.
Yeah, he also died from sniffing his own farts.
I have a bit more reverence for what Godard did for cinema, but I guess that's I think we're far enough away from this death that you can make that comment.
Oh, I would have made it the second if I don't know the guy. And once you're a cultural icon, you become not a person, you're a thing. I'm not saying that's right. I'm not saying it's ethical. But it is reality. No, I have no opinion of him. But I also don't like any of the stuff he sees, so I don't hold much credit as I can understand and acknowledge his influences.
Mhm.
Um, I can't understand them or enjoy them personally. So I'm a little meaner or cynical. And I generally am about all people, even people I like. So no shame on this man.
Right. Anyway, a bit of housekeeping. You can find us on Facebook, which I'm gonna start be more active on there.
Because we
We've
sure
taken
ain't going to
taken
be active on the other thing.
Twitter. Oh, I already
Yeah.
deactivated my Twitter. I
I'll,
That's not there. I'm thinking about starting an Instagram because whenever I meet people, they, and me being in my mid 30s, I'm still of this kind
who's
of
ladies or men? He is single. So I'll wingman this
um
for you out there. Just going to throw that out there for you.
thank you, Tanner. And if you're into this, yeah, that's okay. Thank you for wingmanning me
I
on this
got you. If you
podcast.
don't put
Thank
it
you.
out there, nobody's going to bite, baby.
But yes, we're on Facebook, facebook.com/, I love this flick. I'll start posting new updates when we have new stuff to release, which will be, I mean, it'll be after this. I'll have one before this, and okay, anyway.
We're also still on Twitter at I love this flick for now. But as soon as I get banned from Twitter, that means that will also be banned from Twitter. And I'll be honest, it could go any day now.
Yeah, I
It's
was wondering why you changed the name of it to Elon Musk.
you know, I was hoping it'd get us verified. It's one of the reasons we should start a Patreon for $8 a month. We just need, you know
Hey,
what? Let's
hey,
do $1 a month. We just need 8 people. So we
that
can have
actually
a blue check mark.
yes, that's absolutely, that's all we need from our okay. And you can also find us on the podcast platform, Spotify, Apple Music, um all those.
Hopefully YouTube soon.
Yes, the YouTube account will be more active, so find us, I love this flick, on YouTube.
With video content to come.
Yes, and to plug something personal for me, I am making short films now. You can see one of my short films on Fourth Street Trash Productions on YouTube. Fourth as in the number four and NTH. The short that's on there, Help for My Friends. It's a little crime thing, which kind of not it doesn't like I'm not gonna say I'm a Jim Jarmusch, so I'm not gonna compare it to this fantastic movie that we're about to talk about, but
But
I would
he is like an Orson Welles, and what he's trying to say is this is Citizen Kane 2, right? Is that where you were going with this?
yeah, that's exactly where I was going with it. I'm surprised nobody you know how there's an and I know you've only seen half of this of the original, but Easy Rider, there's an Easy Rider 2, and it's just like this almost has nothing to do with the original Easy Rider. Um I'm surprised nobody has tried to do that with Citizen Kane.
The
Uh
thing is, you could do it. I think, like, look, because it's right. It's about functionally an industrialist. He just does media instead of industry, but it's the same. Like, right? You could do Citizen Kane with Trump, and it would just be Citizen Kane too. Like in
I
the
think it's
way that Citizen Kane is a takedown of Rockefeller. Is that who it is? One of the
no, Hearst, William
Hearst. I'm
Randolph
sorry.
Hearst.
Like in the way that's kind of a takedown of a real person. I feel like you could do a modern. I mean, Wolf of Wall Street is close to something like that. You would
Yeah,
just
but
have
I
to
think the
completely
problem
reinvent cinema and the process. You would just have to completely make up a new way of making movies to reach Citizen Kane levels.
I think the thing is like the problem with that, the problem with doing it with an Elon Musk type figure is that uh, for all of Charles Foster Kane's faults, and there are many, as the movie points out, um, he actually feels like a real person, and the real people that we have now do not feel like real
Well,
people. They
but I
they
will
feel like they're
argue
written.
he's probably more of a real person than William Randolph Hearst is. Like, I bet you that
Sure, yeah,
wealthy businessman was probably less sympathetic and humane than what Orson Welles portrays. So
yeah. In fact, he
maybe
should
it's
be
just up for somebody to take a good long write and really
right,
write the shit out of that movie.
right. Well,
Also, there is a
someday I'm sure.
sequel to Citizen Kane.
Yeah, I personally think we just need to be done with Trump. Just stop talking about him at all. I hope he doesn't run in.
It'll be announced next week. Don't worry about it.
Okay. Anyway, moving on to something I thought.
Well,
Okay.
I've
Oh,
got
you
news
you do
too.
have.
I got a little bit of news. So in that you just had a world premiere movie, I am working on world premiering Life. Life its very self. So this is a new segment as I have them called Daddy Updates, where I update
I wish you
people.
wouldn't say daddy.
Oh no, but Daddy like
Shit.
yeah, so
Fuck.
come to Daddy. Come here and sit on Daddy's lap and let him tell you a thing or two. I apologize. These segments will be getting grosser as we go along.
God damn it.
I saw the little thing. I had a big ultrasound this week, and I saw it with its claws and like its tail and both of its mouths. So I was pretty happy. Just we had a nice conversation with the doctor about how far medicine's come since John Hurt. So the odds of surviving now are just much better than they were before.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so that's exciting. It's now no longer a thing. It's now a xenomorph. Like it's now I've seen the xenomorph. I've seen it do its jazz hands before it scares Yaphet Kotto. Um
Well, that is very exciting. I personally I just became an uncle 2 days ago, so everybody around me is having kids, and it is just it's more bizarre to me than I feel like it should because I again am in my mid 30s. Uh so it's just like, oh yeah, that's the time that people will do that.
in the last 2 years, both my sisters had kids, so I also just became an
Yeah.
uncle, like pretty much an uncle, and then a year later, a second uncle, and then now daddy. Um, uh, so I will say my mom grew up babysitting out of our house, so I've always had children around. So becoming an uncle was very much like I'm ready to have a baby around. So this was great for me. And now I get to be a daddy. So you can get off of daddy's lap, and that was daddy daycare. I don't know. I'll come up with a good title. But it will involve saying daddy in more grotesque ways going forward.
All right. Okay. Anyway, another thing that we can talk about real quick is they you said that they just announced some more casting for the new Into the Spider-Verse movie.
Correct. They cast Spider Punk, who will be played by Daniel Kaluuya,
Oh,
which is pretty cool casting. I'm being presumptuous, but I'm going to guess because of the popularity of it, it'll be based off of the current Spider Punk run, which is very good.
how old is this character? Because I've dropped off of comics for a while, so
I
I
mean,
don't.
Spider Punk has been around for a while. But he just had kind of iconic run. Like he just got his own spin-off series recently,
Okay.
that was very good. Written by Cody Ziegler. Shout out Cody. It's very funny. It's very good. I really like the art of the new series. But this is a character who has been the Spider Verse has been a thing for decades before this movie. Like the Spider Verse is it's always been a thing in the
Yeah.
comics for so long.
Well, I
Um,
remember, even within the there was a pretty pretty big run within the cartoon where Madam Web brings in all these different spider people.
we're
Um,
getting a Madam Web movie too.
wait, they're making a Madam Web movie. Is this one of those Sony
With
things where it's just like we
starring
can't?
Dakota Johnson. Yeah.
Oh wow. Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, it's got good people in it, but I mean, look, they made Morbius, and it's
Wait, you're saying you
bad.
don't like you don't think it's Morbin time?
I actually do love that it got memed to death, and I love that it
Yeah,
got memed so hard they re-released it in theaters and nobody went to see it. Like it just, I love the disconnect between execs and like reality, like just not getting that. Like, no, people aren't saying Morbid Time because they liked the movie. Um, now I like both the Venom movies. I don't think they're like masterpieces, but I think they're good, fun movies.
sure.
They're as good as any of the X Men movies. They're as good as any of the good X Men movies. Um, but so the Spider Verse thing is like a whole thing. So there's lots to draw from. This is a cool character who, as you guessed, is a punk. Like he's a British punk rock. Like it's why they cast a British band to play him. He plays guitar in a punk band. Who are other superheroes? Daredevil's the drummer. Who's
Really?
Daredevil is a woman. Kamala Khan is in it. Steve Rogers is in it. Like he's in a band with these people. Who are also superheroes, but they tour as a punk rock band. It's great. The comics are awesome. I highly recommend. Cool character to show up. Should be a lot of fun with a great actor
Right.
playing him.
That's
They also brought on, excuse me, Issa Rae is playing Spider Woman.
Oh, I
Uh,
did see that. Jessica Drew. Yeah.
yep, yep. Also great casting. Just it's a new Spider Verse movie. I'm very excited. Obviously, I think it's the one thing. Like, look, for all the superhero burnout that's out there, I think you and I both like Spider Verse is kind of a masterpiece. Like, it's kind of a phenomenal movie.
Yeah, and I think and I'll keep bringing certain movies up from the past, 5 years that have been like the best superhero movies, but just like great movies in general. What made Spider Verse so great was this. It was actually doing something I had not seen from superhero cinema up at that till that point, and that was 2018. You get to 2022, my favorite superhero movie of that year, and one of my favorites, Birds of Prey, did something that I thought was interesting in terms of a superhero movie. And it's unfortunate that for the most part, um, it really does have to be like not Marvel. And from what I understand, Marvel came out with Werewolf by Night.
It
I did
rules,
not see it because I got rid of my Disney Plus.
which is the right
Uh,
thing to do.
yes, but I think and you even said like this is like something for me because I love, old Universal monster stuff, old horror stuff.
The Marvel fans don't seem to give a shit about it, but like it is a cinema lover's treat. Like it is such a loving homage to Universal
Yeah.
monster movies.
And if it and I keep hearing like, I mean, Marvel's horror verse is pretty expansive in and of itself. Which is,
You wouldn't know
why.
that from the content that Disney puts out, but it does have a whole horror universe. I mean,
Yeah, well,
technically, aliens are in it.
yeah, yeah, I think it's first off, my big thing is need to scale. If we're gonna get superhero movies, still scale it back like 2 or 3 movies. Like 1 or 2 movies a year. I think is going to be would be like
Also,
fine.
scale down the scope of the movies
Yeah,
themselves. I mean, we're talking about Spider Verse. The reason that movie's good is because it's about a kid and his dad and his uncle. Like,
yeah.
and a
Uh,
grieving father. It's not about someone trying to save the world, really. It's
it,
about
it it is, but
well, I mean, it is, but I mean, it's not. It's about a sad dad. It's actually about a bunch of really sad dads. It's pretty great.
yeah, and from the news of how bad the pre-production, not even the production. I don't even think I'm not sure if they have a director yet. Blade is going.
Oh,
That
they
should be
lost
a
a
slam
director. Yeah,
dunk.
I don't think they've gotten a new director yet.
Yeah, and it's in to be honest, like you could take the director of John Wick. I think like it's so clear that John Wick is a predecessor to Blade and The Matrix, that kind of style of action movie, that it's kind of weird to me that, and not weird because like I think in terms of getting directors who have a specific style in terms of action, Marvel has kind like is I think as much as I love Black Panther, Ryan Coogler wasn't an action director before.
Well,
I mean, the most action he did was Creed, but that's a
and
drama.
this is a known issue, and I think Black Panther is such a good example. We all know how shitty that last fight scene is in Black
Mhm.
Panther. It kind of ruins the like it literally makes the movie go from a 10 to a 9. Like it literally
Yeah,
knocks that 1 point off because of how shit that last is. Here's the issue is we're they're Disney as a company is churning out these movies so fast before they film stuff, they're already having to work on the special effects for so it's called pre-visualizations for people not in the know, previs. So these fight scenes are prevised in pre-production of the movies, which means as you're filming and maybe you discover new avenues, maybe new, maybe all of the Michael B. Jordan stuff wasn't flushed out at the start of that movie, but then you just see his performance, and then you're like, well, we're gonna work a little, like we're gonna soft pivot a little, if I mean, hell, if you had been making that movie without all the visual effects, you might even go, maybe T'Challa shouldn't be the main character of this movie. Maybe we should actually just follow this guy the entire time because it would be just he's the heart and soul of that first movie. So, but you can't do that because they're already halfway through making the final fight scene. So no matter what
right,
you do before that, they've already spent the money to make half of this final fight scene. Which is why it always feels so forced. And so, I think Black Widow is a great example of that. The ending is a clear previs. We already filmed all this. Then we went back and filmed the rest of the movie. But that means it has to work up to and
right,
it
yeah,
doesn't let you change or pivot. Obviously, the benefit of animation is everything's changing all the time. It's why it's a chaotic fucking medium to work in, because everything's always changing, and you're only working on 12 seconds. Which is why anytime an animated movie gets made at all, to me, it's a miracle. And then you get something like Into the Spider-Verse, and you're like, oh, you couldn't do this in another medium. Like this only
no,
works like reference wise, visually. Like this only works because it's animated.
right, for sure. Well, in any case, I think, yeah, I mean, I think just it's pretty obvious that we're both excited for the new Spider-Verse movie, given how great the last one was.
Also, Tom Holland and Yuri Lowenthal will be in it. The two best Spider-Mans.
Wait, really?
Yeah, that was the other rumor, but I think
Rumor.
Tom Holland showing up in it literally makes sense.
I think
Um,
Tom Holland would definitely do it.
And there's no reason why. I mean, it's Sony. They're going to put video game Spider-Man in the thing because it was the third most successful PlayStation game ever made. Um,
Yeah.
and
It's
like in the top 10 most video game, more people played that video game than saw Spider-Verse. They're going to put
I,
it in there.
I didn't because I have an Xbox.
That's fair. It's a masterpiece.
Anyway, let's move on to this to the movie we're going to be talking about, which has been now, which is Jim Jarmusch's I'll say turn of the century classic, Ghost Dog: The Way of the Samurai.
We got a really big problem here, Louis. Seems like you're directly responsible for it. What we need to do is eliminate the scumbag who whacked Frank. His killer needs to be neutralized.
In the words of the ancients, matters of great concern should be treated lightly. Matters of small concern should be treated seriously.
Louis, now is the time to tell us everything you know about this mysterious weirdo.
Ghost Dog, power equality.
I always see everything in brother.
He calls himself Ghost Dog.
What?
Ghost Dog. Ghost Dog?
He said Ghost Dog.
And it's tough, man. 1999 is the best year of movies that happened while we've been alive, in my opinion.
In our lifetime,
like nothing has been 1999. Nothing.
Yeah, like
that
just to we definitely talked about this before, but
we have to. It's amazing.
Yeah, to rattle off like some of the great movies that came out that year. We have The Matrix. We have South Park: Bigger, Longer, Uncut. We have Can't Hardly Wait, I believe. We there is it was.
I mean, no, I mean, The Iron Giant is 1999. Star Wars: The Phantom Menace is 1999.
Yeah,
My favorite movie ever made, Magnolia, is 1999.
Yeah.
Mystery Men is 1999. Stuart Little, 1999. 10 Things I Hate About You, Man in the Man on the Moon, Election,
Fight
Office
Club,
Space,
The
Big John
Insider,
Malkovich, American Beauty, Eyes Wide Shut. It is an obscene year for movies.
The Green Mile, like
Deep Blue Sea, Bicentennial Man,
The Virgin Suicide,
Galaxy Quest, the
Man
best
on the
sci-fi
Moon,
movie ever made.
The Talented Mr. Rip. We're just gonna keep that.
We
That's
could.
probably one of these days. Stir of Echoes. One of these days, I think we just need to do
American movie.
Yeah, one of these days we just need to sit down and do
just yell movies that came out in 1999 at each other for an hour and a half.
Yes.
Jawbreaker.
But this was Jim Jarmusch's I'll say his like first real, well, I don't know about, I think his first real mainstream quote unquote movie, even though this was still an independent film. The one that he released before this was also, I think, is less accessible, but because it starred, and at the time, one of the biggest young stars out there, Johnny Depp, it got a little bit more attention from the mainstream.
I really like Dead Man. It's literally the only other Jim Jarmusch movie I've seen. I really like Dead Man.
Yeah, I've seen a few others, and the thing is, like, I need to like really bone up on Jim Jarmusch. The thing about his movies, especially his early movies, is, and you'll notice that within Ghost Dog, is he's a very quiet filmmaker. Like he does a great job of, making the silences interesting and making them matter. And all these quiet moments to inform about the characters, along with the dialogue and the connection through there.
And I say I like Dead Man. I think this movie is more successful in literally every way. From Dead Man.
Yeah, and like I said, like it is my favorite Jim Jarmusch movie. and maybe one of my favorite crime movies of the 90s. Even though like it it's a weird. So have you ever heard the phrase uh crime fantasy? I've heard this thrown out a few times, and it kind of relates to movies like John Wick, like Nobody, like those kinds of. It's they're not like superheroes, they're hitmen or something like that, and you can tell like they're in like this heightened reality. I've heard Kill Bill um
Sure. I
explained
mean,
in this
even the
way.
John Wick movies, the John Wick movies are fantasy films.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point is it's not a. I think this would be tonally on the you know not quality wise but tonally the less it's these like the criminals in this you can definitely kind of find a crime fantasy element to it, especially when it comes to Ghost Dog, but the criminals are fucking on their way out.
See, and I think that's why I would argue I wouldn't put this in that category only because everyone acknowledges that Ghost Dog is weird. It's not some
Yeah,
weird fantasy world where like, all right, I'm going to pay a coin to this homeless person who's then going to like, and there's all these rules and there's hotels where you can't fight. Like, there's none of that bullshit. Everyone goes, who's this weird guy with the sword reading poetry all day? This guy's fucking weird, right? And then like he murders everyone.
I mean, to be fair though, it's only the gangsters that say that. There
Well,
is
yeah,
this
everyone
really
else is like he's just a quiet guy who hangs out in the neighborhood.
well, and more than that, you get these, guys coming up with him, the rappers in the park, the guys hanging out in front of his building, have this reverence for him. They don't treat him as like, oh, that's the weird, quiet dude. The only person within the neighborhood that kind of does that is Pauline, but she's also a fucking kid. Um, but
And she should be terrified of a vagrant man coming up to a child in like the park. That is a fair thing to be like, I don't trust you. Good kid. You should not trust any stranger who behaves this way.
yeah, yeah. Well, to be fair, she approached him, but yeah, it is kind of a mishmash. I do think like there's things like just little things really inform us about this world and Ghost Dog. And first off, where do you think this movie takes place?
City. If I was
Yeah,
to pick a city, it would be Baltimore.
well, here's the thing. Jim Jarmusch wanted this to be undefinable, an undefinable city, so that's why he I believe it somewhere in New Jersey. I don't want to say Jersey City, but somewhere in New Jersey, to a point where there's a shot in the movie where one of the scenes where they're on the gangsters are looking for the ghost dog at searching all the pigeon coops. You see that they had the twin towers in the background, and they had to put up a clothesline to distort that so that it would still be like, where is that? That's not like, what kind of city is it? I think it's the Gary Farmer scene, if you know who that is. Gary
Oh, sure.
Farmer
Yep. Yep.
from Dead Man says the same line from Dead Man. And Gary Farmer also like is having an incredible like run as an actor. He's on Resident Alien and also a regular on Reservation Dogs. So uh
Oh,
but
and
yeah,
he's Our Flag Means Death too. Um,
yeah,
love him on that.
yeah. So and okay, so the plot of the movie, let's break down that first off. A Forest Whitaker plays just a guy known as Ghost Dog. He is a hitman who gets his orders from a low level gangster named Louis, played by John Tormey, who saved Ghost Dog's life when he was younger. He is assigned to kill a guy who is fucking the daughter of the head of the or this very I'll say like pathetic organization mob organization, and I really want to get into that. um so he
Handsome
goes
Frank.
yeah.
That's who they have
uh
to kill.
so he kills this guy, but the daughter is there, she witnesses it. So they say like, oh well, Ghost Dog has to die now, or Louis, we are going to kill you. So that's pretty much the plot of the movie. But most of the movie is kind of just following these characters, or specifically Ghost Dog. But you do get a bit of what Louis is going through. What
I
Louis,
was surprised at how much Louis is in the movie.
yeah,
Like
be-
I shouldn't say how much he's in it, but like how much it does give his point of view of things, um, and complicates your relationship with the mafia because he's not the worst guy in the world.
no, it's well, and the thing about the mobsters in this movie is they are clearly not good at their job. Like
They're
first,
old. It's a dying thing, and
well,
it's pretty funny.
and
I mean,
this
it
was
is played comically for a lot of this movie that they are just a bunch of old men.
Yeah, and this is after the like Gotti trial. So there's a little bit of remnants of that. There is like, Giuliani coming down hard on the mob. And this is what's left. And
And now we all know he was part of it. Uh,
yeah. And it goes in with this theme of um certain cultures going extinct. And by that I mean like, so Ghost Dog is emulating samurai culture. He lives by the samurai code. He's always reading Harakiri, the way of the samurai, as is referenced in the title of the movie. And but one of the famous things about samurais, eventually after a while, they became, obsolete. They became um
yeah,
they became
war
masterless.
war changed.
Yeah,
Just samurais weren't effective tools anymore, so they
yeah,
became extinct.
yeah. And there's guys who like, Ronins, and there's guys who just became bandits. um
If you ever
you
want to
know
learn more, play Ghost of Tsushima on the PlayStation Entertainment System.
um but that's kind of the way, when you really think about it, what was going on with the mafia in the late 90s. I mean, like, when we talk about the mafia now, it's hard to it's not like the same as in like the Gotti years, or
It's not the Corleones.
yeah, no,
It's not The Godfather. It is,
no.
well, and it's another thing that started in 1999. It's The Sopranos.
Mhm.
Right? The Sopranos is a comedy because at this point the mafia is kind of a joke.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing is, like, the Sopranos aren't, the biggest gangsters, but they're fairly respected. And that, Tony Soprano is really respected. These guys were introduced to them, one of the gangsters, I guess paying rent or something, or paying
Yep.
off some other guy and saying like, look, I'll have the money, the rest of it tomorrow, I swear. And it's just like, you can tell how far in bad times the organization
Or
is.
just how down the ladder these guys are on like the totem pole of the
Well,
power
here's the thing, I
hierarchy.
don't think that they are. I think that that's just their organization.
I'm
I don't
sure
think
that
there's
is all
anybody.
that is left. Like it's just
Yeah,
this is our we are the mob of like a 6 block radius of mostly retirees.
yeah, they work out of a hole in the wall Chinese restaurant. um
That they have to pay rent for.
they have to pay rent for, and nobody is under the age of 60.
No,
Like,
not a
that's
soul.
um and so, but we got a lot aside from Louis. We got the three main ones are let me see if I can get the other ones. Well, first off, we got Henry Silva as Ray Vargo, who is I'm guessing the head of the organization. Um we uh I keep um Frank, handsome Frank. I believe that's the one who is really into Public Enemy.
Well,
Um,
Handsome Freak's the one that's sleeping with the daughter.
oh, okay, yeah. You're right. You're right. I guess it's not a. Yeah, I don't know why they don't have the rest of those main guys on here, but they do have Henry Silva, who was kind of with in the Rat Pack back in the day. Not in the Rat Pack, but he was around those guys. Um, but yeah, so that okay, so this was your first watch, right?
Yes.
Okay. So what was because I had seen this a couple of times before. Long time ago, first when I saw it back in couldn't have been long after it came out, sometime in the mid 2000s is when I watched it. Um and then like a few other times throughout the years. And I feel like I'm gonna just keep coming back to this because it is just a wonderful, beautiful film. What was your expectation on this?
I knew very little. Like I said, I'm not familiar with Jim Jarmusch. Like I know he has a thing. I am involved enough with film social media to get that he is a thing. I know he's enough of a thing that he recently cameoed on What We Do in the Shadows as Jim Jarmusch. It was a very funny joke, but it was cool to see him. He also has one of those iconic images. So like he just Jim Jarmusch when you see him. He's kind of unmistakable. Frankly,
The
he's a
kind of
weird
like
looking.
tall white hair.
He's got that David Lynch energy.
Yeah. I feel like Jim Jarmusch as like a person and personality is a little more weird to say down to earth.
Oh, correct. He's a very yeah, no judgments of it. Like he seems like a very down to earth, nice, fairly normal dude. He just has a look.
Yeah, he has a look and he's just like he's like a lot of those late 80s early 90s independent filmmakers that came up around that time. He is a product of his influences, which we're definitely going to get into because there's a
Oh,
lot.
totally. But like, so I had seen Dead Man right when I was kind of being a budding film dork. But this was also you and I are both roughly enough the same age that I can say this, and I know this might blow people's minds. We didn't always have access to the internet. That was not just like a thing that's always existed.
Yes.
There was a time not that long ago where you just couldn't look up things. So Dead Man was a thing I saw on TV, and then I worked at the video rental store liquor store in my town that was a liquor store that sold video rentals. But I worked there a lot, so I would just watch movies all day long and then would take movies home at night and bring them back in the morning. um and we had a copy of Dead Man there, and it was just always a movie I put on. This was back when Johnny Depp was okay to like. And I was a big Johnny Depp fan because even then, my one of my favorite movies was Ed Wood, a movie we've talked about.
Yes.
Go back and listen to that episode. Unsurprisingly, we both love Ed Wood. It's a fucking masterpiece. It's truly just an amazing movie. But I love Johnny Depp, and so I was just really into Dead Man, which was an if you haven't seen it, it's a very quiet movie that's mostly Johnny Depp walking through the woods in black and white. That's mostly what the movie is. And some stuff happens, but not a lot of stuff. It's mostly just sad people walking, wearing big furry coats, and then just having bad things happen to them.
Right.
It's not too dissimilar from this in that, like, no, bad things just keep happening, huh? Um, but so my expectations for this were Forest Whitaker's gonna be weird in this. And that's kind of all I knew going into it. Now I had not watched The Sopranos yet. I don't have a lot of cultural relevance to mob stuff. It's not my thing. As we've gone over time and time again, crime, not my favorite subject matter. So I don't watch a lot of crime movies. So I didn't know what to expect on this. But it was at the top of a lot of watch lists, and like a lot of people really respected this movie. And yeah, I find this movie to be very poetic. It's very beautiful. It does feel like a haiku. Like it truly does feel like poetry watching it. Yeah, what a very pretty movie.
Yeah, it's and another thing to talk about the music, which I think complements the movie a lot, is this is the first time the RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan has done a score. He would go on to do scores for Kill Bill. Um, I think he did the score for his own film. The uh I think it's like Iron Glove. I want to say he did the music for Unleashed. I know he did a song for Unleashed. Uh but let me see. Score. Um yeah, I can't find it because that's a very vague topic. But um that kind of, if you're familiar with the Wu-Tang Clan, they have a very at the time a very distinct sound because they were mixing in kung fu films and black exploitation clips and sampling stuff along with um real kind of percussion of trash cans and stuff like that. Like you listen to it and it feels very um of the streets, which I think complements the um non-specific uh urban setting of the place.
Ghost dog, power equality.
Always see everything, my brother.
And again, kind of this, you look around this world that Jim Jarmusch has created, you get stuff in there like Ghost Dog is passing by an empty lot and there's this old man about to get mugged. The old man puts down his groceries and just kicks the guy. And it's just like, oh, okay, some kind of, this other kind of martial artist is in there. You get the scene where um uh Ghost Dog and his buddy go up to a roof and they see a guy who's building a boat on a rooftop. Um so it's this kind of, and within that world you have these gangsters who all their homes have for sale signs. And I love that touch of it. Like those are some really great details.
Well, and the homes themselves are not great.
Yeah.
Like the boss's house is pretty nice, but again, it's not a mansion. It's a nice house.
Well, and there's a lot of stuff. Again, there's a for sale sign on there, so there's a lot of stuff that's packed up too.
But all the other guys, even below the boss, their homes are, I would say, not enviable. Like, it's not like you like, oh, I would love to be a mobster and live in this house. You're like, ugh, gross. You kill people, and that's like the way you like. It's just like, look, I am a not well-to-do mid-30s-year-old, right? Like, and I'm like, oh, my house is better than theirs. I'm like, the house I live in and own is better than these mobsters' house.
Yeah. But I think the um part of the one thing I found interesting is and I don't want to say clash of cultures. I think intermingling of cultures or cultural exchange, I think, is pretty much all throughout it. Which again, I think having the RZA do the soundtrack is a part of that theme because the RZA always cuts in kung fu films in with his hip hop songs. You have and literal exchanges. The mob boss's daughter gives Ghost Dog a copy of the book Rashomon, which also you see a lot of these references that actually come to fruition, that actually have to do with the movie Rashomon, of course. One of the most famous story, because Akira Kurosawa made a great film. Can you hear me still?
Yep.
Okay, sorry, I accidentally kicked.
Shocker. Kurosawa made a good movie.
Yeah, but it is one of his most famous ones,
Oh,
and
100%.
of course the pit the I don't want to say gimmick, but
It
the
is. It invented an entire narrative structure.
right. But it's about these three guys telling each other about this trial of a rapist and murderer, and there are three different perspectives of what happened, and we see those perspectives, and it is unclear which one is true, or if there's a amalgam of all those. So you take that in with the scenes of Ghost Dog and Louis telling about how he met Ghost Dog, which was Ghost Dog was being attacked by these three guys. Louis kind of steps in. The thing that you see from his perspective is one of the guys pulls a gun on Louis. When Ghost Dog reminisces about this later, the gun is pointed at Ghost Dog. So Ghost Dog, I think, thinks that it's more altruistic than it actually turned out to be. So he and I love that we get little tiny glimpses of what Ghost Dog's life must have been beforehand. There's a picture of a woman up in his like little bird shack that he lives in. That's never addressed. You don't know
No.
who that is. You don't know if that's his sister, if that's an old girlfriend or wife. Um, but it fleshes out some kind. He does have a past. There is this kind of thing of it would be easy to just say to have Ghost Dog as an empty slate because of his demeanor, which is primarily um quiet and calculated.
It's devoid of emotion and heavy in thought.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
is his whole teaching. Clear mind, like clear hearts.
Can't lose.
Yeah.
Um but you fill these kinds of thing in with his friendship with Raymond. The fact that he has such reverence for nature and animals in particular. Even within the scene he was where he's being attacked, which the younger version of Ghost Dog is played by Forest Whitaker's younger brother. I want to point that out. You do see like this kind of not I don't know about martial arts, but some kind of Asian inspired t-shirt that he's wearing, which kind of implies in some way he was always kind of into this stuff. But there's a few years between him being saved by Louis and him coming back, and you can just kind of assume that that's him honing his craft. And it is incredible when you see him actually performing, because everything is he has so many calculated movements. You see him how he creates or fixes or keeps up the maintenance of these tools that he uses, like the stuff he uses to break into cars, his guns. um it's one of those things. It is one of those things in crime films where it's like Thief, where it's just like the procedure is just as interesting as the story that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, well, even in Thief, I would say specifically it's more exciting than the actual story going on. Like I could just Watch James Caan crack into safes all day. I literally don't need you to put anything else in this movie. It could be an hour and a half of him real time cracking a safe, and I would be enthralled. You would not, and it's similar in this movie, but I think all the things you're saying are it's another one of those things where oftentimes, and I don't think this movie is. I don't want to say it's not influential, but in movies where so often the wrong thing gets taken away, I think this movie does so much to texture Ghost Dog's life without explaining
Yeah.
Ghost Dog's life, right? Like that picture of this woman is like, you just know he's capable of relationships with women, or, and whatever relationship that is irrelevant. You have all the information you need. You see him being good with animals. You don't need a story of him saving a goddamn cat. You just need to see him having respect for animals. And that's enough. And you can piece all these things, and like, you don't need to know what he did in the community to make people respect him. You just need to know that they respect him.
Yeah.
So I don't need those kids walking away later and then the camera follows them and go like, yo man, when I was 6, he
Yeah.
stopped a jacking, right? And he saved my mom. Or, I don't need a story. I just need people. They've textured it, and the story is about Ghost Dog and this guy who's presumably been taking advantage of him his entire life.
Well, I don't think, because like even with it, he says like, Ghost Dog would, I didn't see this kid. Years later, he comes back, and by the way, one major element that we haven't discussed is Ghost Dog and Louis communicate with each other through carrier pigeon. He has a shack full of pigeons that he raises and trains. Or as one of the gangsters say, "Goddamn passenger pigeons."
I do like that there's an extended sequence of senior men going around destroying pigeon coops in the city.
Yeah.
Just so much of their time is spent getting onto roofs, dismantling things. It seems like a real burden for them. Like, they don't seem to be enjoying the job they do. They hate their job.
Again, they are out of shape men in their 60s. Like this is something that they would usually assign to the younger guys, but they
There
don't
are no
have
younger guys. Yeah, they're not getting new recruits.
Yeah.
These are a
Louis
bunch of like old men who would be in the clubhouse at a golf club, but not golfing because they're not in shape enough to golf.
to golf. Um, but so uh, there is. So I forgot the exact point we were getting. Oh, Ghost Dog's character. I do think like when he is um interacting with people and when he's growing connections to people, like you have the little girl Pauline who comes in with her lunchbox full of books, and they're discussing the books. Um, you know, I think they even exchange a few. He gives her the Rashomon copy at the sometime at the end of the first act.
Mhm.
He has this friendship with an ice cream truck owner who is a Haitian immigrant who speaks nothing but French. Yet they still it reminds me of another movie from 1999 that I love from a indie auteur, The Limey from Steven Soderbergh. Throughout it, Terrence uh, Zod from Superman 2.
Terrence Malick,
No, that's the
Terrence Howard, Terrence Trent D'Arby.
you're just gonna do all the Terrences. He's a former English criminal who speaks primarily in Cockney slang. Terrence Stamp. Um,
Oh yes, from, of course, Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. Um,
which I haven't seen. Maybe sometime we'll have to put that on the list.
That's a big one for me. So
Okay. Okay. Um, but Terrence Stamp's character primarily speaks to Luis Guzman and I forget who the actress is in that movie. He speaks primarily in um, Cockney slang. So there's a exchange between the woman and Luis Guzman, where Guzman goes, um, do you know what he's saying? And she says to Luis Guzman, no, but I understand him. I think that they're, even though like they admit they don't understand what each other is saying, oftentimes they'll say something and then the other person will say something, either the exact same thing, or they'll say something to that effect. Um, it is an interesting dynamic, and um, even the way he interacts with Louis, you see this, and to a point you don't really understand it because Louis just seems like, even within that shit organization, he seems like a at least a mid-tier guy.
He is lower middle management.
Yes. um but you do get that respect that Ghost Dog has for Louis, like some kind of reverence for him. um and it's just really the way that Lawrence Forest Whitaker um sells that. He has, I know people make fun of his eyes a lot, but there is something interesting within those eyes of his, that I think really sells this, because he'll be stone faced, but you're like, I think you are trying to figure out what he's thinking the entire time. um just, God, I fucking love this movie. I'm sorry. I think like this movie is fantastic. So I'm just
No,
probably
it's
gonna.
tough. We're running into one of those things where like it is hard to talk about things that are good. Like it's more difficult to talk about things that are good than it is to talk about things that are bad. Um, at least
Yeah,
for
and
me
I.
personally. So I'll say a big worry I had going into this, because I'm a woke little soy boy, snowflake. Um,
You cuck.
yeah, but like it's fine. It's whatever. It's who I am. I was worried that I would be off put by the cultural appropriation.
Yeah.
Now I live up here, in Minneapolis. I know lots of people. I also know I'm not a big anime fan. I'll say
Hmm.
as a whole, the black community that I know has a much stronger fondness towards anime, towards a lot more Japanese culture stuff than I do. Right? It's not a stretch to think that this kid just grew up watching samurai movies, and um, it's there's a reason why everyone in Wu Tang is like into this, right? Like there's just
Yeah.
a cultural center there.
Well, martial arts films were the ones that were played in the grindhouses in
Yeah,
those
the double
neighborhoods.
featured with a black exploitation movie or something, right?
Yeah.
Like it's cool, because all of those things are good. Um, so I'm grateful that this movie did make me uncomfortable.
I think
It
there is.
like right, it doesn't feel, nothing about it feels appropriation. It does feel respectful. It feels, oh my,
Mhm.
clearly this is an homage to samurai movies. I mean, stylistically there's technically appropriation going on because he has made a samurai movie with a modern day samurai in it.
Yeah.
uh
About a primarily, um somebody within the black community primarily.
Correct. But I mean, it's very, I mean, this isn't any different than like a samurai movie where a dude helps a union fight against like labor bosses, right? Like that's not like, all of that is like, oh, this all works. It's just the mafia instead of a labor mob. Like
Yeah.
or it all lines up with samurai stuff in a way that, again, it feels loving, respectful, tributey, homagey. Um, all the
Well,
good
that's
words,
that.
but it doesn't feel like the bad words, and it's still in itself Jim Jarmusch. Like above
Yeah.
all of those things, it's like, oh, this is a Jarmusch movie though. Like it is quiet, and I would argue plotting at points where like nothing's happening, huh? We were just gonna watch these leaves blowing the. All right, it's fine. It's beautiful. I'm not complaining, and I don't need anything to happen. Um,
Well, I think that has always been kind of a thing that Jim Jarmusch would do, which was, um, like I said, the cultural exchange. And I really do think that it's a cultural exchange in this movie. It's a blend of, um, this urban setting with a primarily African American, or just black, population. You have the mafia, which is And I don't want to insult the Italian community, but it is I could like kind of iconic uh of and let's face it, the not the 70s since The Godfather to the 90s, with the Scorsese's Goodfellas and Casino, that that was a big image of Italians, which a lot did. I will say a lot did find offensive. A lot, recognized their neighborhoods and their community within that.
It goes both
Um,
ways for most of those
yeah,
things, most of them.
yeah. I think it does, especially with crime, and it's more of a theory of, um, somebody like John Dillinger or Pretty Boy Floyd being, criminals and weirdly enough, folk heroes within a time that was economically disastrous for most people. Um, but even within the Italian mafia, they have that first scene with those three guys. One of it, they talk about like Ghost Dog. What kind of fucking name is Ghost Dog? And one's like talks about, oh yeah, like the rapper names. My favorite was always Flava Flav, and he starts rapping a Public Enemy song. Henry Silva has this thing about Native American names, and then they just go, so fucking stupid, isn't it? And then they then they call in a guy just like, hey, get Jakey the Snake, Rob the da 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 da. It's just like everybody fucking does that. Everybody kind of comes up with these different kind of names, these nicknames. Also, just the fact that there's so many people, like when they go to with the boat scene, you have this guy who is, they try to talk to him. He speaks Spanish. So you got a guy who can only speak English, a guy who can only speak French, and a guy who can only speak Spanish communicating with each other in some way, but that way isn't language. It is through the things that they really bring to each other.
Well, yeah, I think honestly, it's a respect of work. That man's building a boat, and you know what? He's doing it. He ain't talking
Yeah.
about it. He's not. This man doesn't speak the language and runs a successful ice cream truck. I got nothing but like there is just a respect for working people. It's one of those things. It's a thing. Tom Hanks always plays, right? Men who are good at their jobs.
Yes. Yeah.
And this movie is literally built off of a respect. Like the mafia people, as we've pointed out several times, are generally bad at their jobs. The mafia in this they're incompetent, they're bad, they're lazy, and this movie is just like all of our heroes are people who do the work.
There is a scene, in the middle of the movie where they kind of stop the movie for the mafia to get yelled at by the landlord. You're 3 months behind on rent. And he's saying this to the mafia. Like in any other mob movie, like the mob would somehow intimidate or fuck this guy up. Here, just like, yeah, I know. All right. I'm sorry. All right.
Yeah, they don't like get revenge or burn a bit. Like it's literally just like they get their tails put between their legs. And that's just to remind you, these guys aren't good at what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
I know one honestly, of the other movies this is compared to pretty often.
I was in the middle of that. Mystery Train. Which
not the one I was gonna say.
Okay. I was gonna another Jim Jarmusch movie, but it's about people who either live or visiting Memphis, Tennessee. And especially in the 80s, this is just little over a decade after Elvis had died. And really, let's face it, like Elvis love is mainly coming back because of the movie that came out recently.
I didn't know Elvis love was back. I didn't think anyone gave a fuck about Elvis anymore.
I think people are starting to, okay, yeah, but, or at least
wrong.
It's coming back to the public consciousness, and I think Gen Z is learning about it. But like I was saying, one of the people, there's a Japanese couple who don't speak English walking around Memphis. It is like, again, that cultural exchange of this means something to somebody who didn't grow up within this culture. It is, um, I think we'll talk about his influences for this movie. One of his major influences, like it's no fucking secret, is Jean Pierre Melville's Les Samurai.
which I
Uh,
also saw for the first time.
yeah, and it's when you because I think this is a part of the whole, and we've talked about this. It's just like listening to Quentin Tarantino or Martin Scorsese or any of you, or Paul Thomas Anderson or any of your other favorite directors talk about movies that they love.
Is cocaine.
Talk about movies that they love, and then how that influenced their works. I think the aside from making some great films, Quentin Tarantino's biggest contribution to cinema is referencing those films. And the same is with Jim Jarmusch. He's like I said, heavily Les Samurai is heavy influence. And when you look at, and we talked about this in our Breathless episode, the French New Wave was very admired a lot of Hollywood films. Like they absolutely loved them to a point where Jean Pierre Melville made a lot of noir crime films that are like almost are very reminiscent of American noir. Bob Le Flambeau, um, Les Samurai, Le Secret Rouge.
I mean, hell, Dead Man is technically a black and white crime noir. I mean, technically.
Yeah. Well, and that's him playing around with westerns.
Yep.
Which is like even saying like that's the Pacific Northwest, which is not really an area that gets explored as much within westerns.
But it is about a criminal. I mean, that is just another crime story.
Yeah. But I do find it interesting that one of his influences is a French movie that is pretty much influenced by like the Humphrey Bogart or George Raft movies, Robert Mitchum movies of the 50s. And then another major
shout out to Les Samurai if you have not watched it. The movie rules. And that's coming from someone who again doesn't like crime movies. That movie was a delight. That was a treat. I don't like crime or French movies. I should have fucking hated every second of that movie. And it was too good. It was just like, oh, this is a masterpiece. I get it. That's fine.
Bob Le Flambeau is from the 50s. I would be interested to see what you think of that. But the other movie that's a major influence, and mainly because of the kills, but it's also like a stylized Japanese hitman movie, is Branded to Kill. But the contrast is Branded to Kill's hitman is kind of bombastic. He's always talking about, he's the second best hitman there is. And the plot really, if you want to call, like, here's the thing. Last time I watched the movie wasn't too long ago, and I still am confused about most of what goes on in the movie. But basic plot is the number one hitman is fucking with this guy. But the pipe kill in the movie is directly taken from that movie. And by the way, I'm wearing a Tokyo Drifter t-shirt, which is another movie from the director of Branded to Kill, Shinju Suzuki. He made a lot of really fun, great looking Japanese Yakuza crime movies, which if that's something you want to get into, I would suggest starting with him. He is kind of the go-to guy for that kind of stuff, aside from more modern Takashi Kitano or Takashi Miike. So
he made The Audition, one of my favorite movies. Haven't watched his crime stuff, like his horror stuff. His horror stuff's real good.
Yeah, his crime stuff is just as horror oriented.
Fantastic. You got my interest.
But you also get these other things within the movie, kind of references. there's the Frankenstein bit, which I think is in terms of like my um theory about how that story connects to Ghost Dog is part of that book is the Frankenstein's monster um you know going after his creator. And while Ghost Dog isn't going after Louis, he takes out the entire organization. Um so and honestly, like, this movie, even for its runtime, has not really any much fat on it.
No, I mean
It-
it is a breezy 2 hours. Like
yeah,
it is a light watch.
yeah, because there's always
Also, it's
something.
not that heavy or dramatic, frankly. Like, I mean, I'm not saying there's not drama or whatever,
Yeah,
but it is a funny. It's funny. The movie, there are jokes in this movie. Like, it is a. I think that's the thing because when Dead Man is not a funny movie. I would say it's not even fun to watch. That movie takes work.
right.
This movie doesn't. This feels like I
Well, it
don't
is.
like to say commercial, but I mean, this is an approachable, like, I would recommend this to anybody. This movie just is good and fun to watch. It's not like, again, I don't recommend Dead Man to most people. The movie is
Yeah.
difficult.
Well,
It's
there's
homework.
something. There's always something going on, at least stylistically, in the movie. There's a lot of uh lapse dissolves within the movie that look really cool. There's just the way that Forest Whitaker
Handles
handles
everything.
himself.
Forrest Whitaker is just, he's an actor who always makes the weirdest fucking choices.
Well,
Like in his performance.
yeah,
And this is no exception.
there is a bit in towards the beginning of the movie where he raises his hand while passing a cemetery. That happened in a rehearsal, and then they're just like, "Fuck, Ghost Dog does that." Ghost Dog does that. There's just the way that nobody seems to see him as he's walking down the street. Like, he'll go between two guys, their backs to each other, and nobody will notice that there was another guy that just went by. You know,
Yeah, I mean
uh,
he's a ghost. No,
yeah,
but like
and
Forrest Whitaker is truly captivating to watch. Like that's what helps this movie just breeze through is that like you are kind of laser focused on him whenever he's on the screen. And
mm-hmm,
he's always making an interesting decision. Like
yeah,
so it's just like really easy to lock in on this dude who is he's the hero, he's your protagonist, he's who you're following the majority of the movie.
yeah,
But it's I don't want to look at my phone if he's on screen, right? Like I'm like, what's he gonna do in this scene? What
or when
weird
anybody's on,
acting decision is he going to make?
yeah, or when
Um,
anybody's on screen. Like, I love the gangster parts because because each one of them like is a different kind of stereotypical mobster. Um,
and then they're bad at that. Like they're a
yes, and they're
stereotype
bad at
and
that.
they're an incompetent stereotype.
Yeah, and also like, we haven't really talked about the action scenes because there aren't a lot of them. A lot of the violence in this is very, you know, slow burn. It
But
happens, and
efficient. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it is. I mean,
efficient.
you are
That's
following a guy who is good at being a hitman. So like,
yeah,
it's not like a big bombastic action scene. It's a go in, do the job, and get out.
yeah, and but the I do believe the mansion action set piece is really a genuinely
Is that the
uh
one where everyone gets shot?
yeah, pretty much everyone gets shot. And well, almost everyone. One guy just has a fucking heart attack.
Yes, everyone dies, but not all. That's what it's again. It's played
Louis
up for
and
comedy.
the
Yeah.
daughter don't die.
Yes,
Like,
they
that's
get away.
and but it like, there's also little scenes that are interesting. Like right after that too. Like, you get Ghost Dog um uh coming across these hunters that kill the black bear. Um that's out of season, and like, I think the thing that pisses him off, and which you don't see any like anger within his face ever, you actually see more sadness
Yeah.
during that scene. There the hunters say like, yeah, ain't really much of these big motherfuckers around anymore. So Ghost Dog shoots them and is just like, oh, so why you killed it, because they're not there anymore. I love the line, in ancient time, like Ghost Dog says, in ancient times, bears were considered, and I forget the entire quote from him, but the guy responds to, "This ain't ancient times, misters," and Ghost Dog says, "Sometimes it is," and that's just kind of chilling. Well, at the same time, like I think probably the scene right after that one is Louis, the gang boss's daughter, and this other one of these the other like low level gangsters in the movie. They get stopped after being shot. They get stopped by a cop. It's a woman cop, which they make clear, and they're trying to get out of this situation, and the other guy just shoots her. And there is this like he's basically, you're like, the guy who shot you, like, you're being sexist and stuff like that, and then he dies. They're all like very interesting. The connective tissue to the plot, and this is why we watch movies. This is one of the great things about movies, is when you build the story, it's not just, when you build a movie or any kind of story, it's not just plot. It and what complements the plot is everything that goes around it. What is the emotions we're trying to get? What are the little things within this person's realm that we can associate with them? One of the things I read the little criterion booklet that came with them. I read the essays and an interview with Jim Jarmusch right after the movie premiered. And one of the things he talks about, and I forget, the Carl Dreyer, who directed Joan of Arc and Vampire, um, had, Jim Jarmusch paraphrases him about like, you you have very few things within a room, and the few items that you have in there are become representative of the character, and that really is I think masterful advice when it comes to film, is be detailed but be specific about what you of what represents your character.
Well, sure. And such a common thing I complain about now is everything's all about plot and nothing's about character. As far as blockbusters are concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the reason Jaws is the greatest movie ever made and the greatest blockbuster movie ever made is because Jaws is exclusively about character.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shark, it's killing people, but you don't care. You care about Hooper, you care about Quint, you care about like Brody, like you love those dudes, or you care about Mrs. Brody yelling at her kids to get off the boat after seeing a shark bite. Like you care about those people. It's the Spielberg thing, right? He makes you care about people and then has those people go through some shit.
Yeah.
And
but I think
this
like
does the same thing where the shit doesn't matter. It's really about the people. Like it's really about Louis and Ghost Dog. Really, it's about those two. It's their story.
Yeah.
And it's great. You get so much of their relationship without them beating you over the face with their backstory.
Yeah, they tell it once, and you really do you understand Ghost Dog's logic. Louis doesn't really understand what their relationship, why Ghost Dog does this.
No, Louis does not understand Ghost Dog in any way at all.
No, but he still uses them for hits.
Speaking of which, I will say my favorite part of the whole movie is when Ghost Dog says, "I didn't want to put too many holes in you," when he has to shoot Louis. And he shoots him in the exact same
place.
And he's like, "I did it out of respect." Like, I just like the, like, I did it because we're friends. Like, that was the right thing to do. I just love it. It's so good. It's so, I mean, that's just it though. That's the tone of this movie. Like, if you did not watch this or haven't seen it, it is that, like, that's a joke. That's a very good joke. It's very funny. It's not delivered comedically. Forest Whitaker is not quote unquote funny in that sequence, but just the way he's like, I did it out of respect. Like, you hired me to do my job well. I'm doing my job well. I didn't want to put too many holes in you. We're friends. Like, is very delivered sincerely, and you 100% believe him. And also, it's really fucking funny.
Yeah. And wrapping this up, talk about the ending where Ghost Dog, takes out the bullets of his gun, kind of wraps up his relationships with people. He wraps up his relationship with Raymond, um, which there is a thing of, I think, Raymond seeing who Ghost Dog is for the first time or what he does, and still like not being surprised. Not, he's a little surprised, but he is just like, it's not really something that is would seem like, oh, this, okay, I get who Ghost Dog is. Um, and he gives him money, locks up a suitcase and locks the gun in the suitcase, gives the key to Raymond. Exchange gives the book, gets the book, Rashomon back from Perline, um, and gives her the Harakiri, which again, this is not something we've talked about. They go, Forrest Whitaker narrates several passages from that book, um, and it somehow, I think that's also a part of why we know very little about Ghost Dog's backstory, but we know who he is because this is that book is the philosophy that he lives by. So you understand his code, you understand why he does the things he does through all this. So he gives her the book, and Louis comes around, and and Ghost Dog refuses to shoot him because he still has, because that's still his code. He is Louis's retainer. Like he makes that clear. Even Louis at times seems just like, God, Ghost Dog, just get out of here. Just I don't think that this is, it's very much like Louis doesn't want to be doing these things. Louis doesn't want to kill Ghost Dog, but he does.
And I think and again, this is just my reading of it, especially with the Rashomon stuff, and then the two different. We get Rashomon, we see the origin of Ghost Dog twice, and it's different each time, right? Because of the point of view shift. I do feel like Louis is coming to terms with maybe he's the bad guy and shouldn't have turned this kid into a killer. Um, um, and so I do think there is I want you to get out of this life mentality to what he's doing. Um, and I do think Ghost Dog is just, and he's honor bound at this point, right? Like,
yeah,
but that honor is probably based off of a lie. Like, he doesn't owe this guy anything. Technically, this guy owes him like everything.
Yeah.
And so I do think Louis knows that now. I don't know if it's maybe his mortality or whatever's going on, but I do feel like there is some remorse in him. Again, it's why this movie's kind of beautiful. Is like, I think he does feel bad for the life he's put this guy through.
Yeah, and he feels bad for eventually killing Ghost Dog.
Yeah.
And gives him the Rashomon book. And there is a line is just like, oh, so you're running things now. And Louis even says, like, that's not how it is. And he gets, like, after killing Ghost Dog, he gets back in the car, and the gangster's daughter is there. Is this like, oh, that's my book, taking everything full circle. Like, that's just how life worked in this movie, is like everything came full circle. And you can tell, like, and Louis says twice to the driver, hey, can we get out of here, please? And he doesn't move the car until she tells him.
Mm-hmm.
So you now are just like, oh, this is the younger generation stepping in.
Well, and like, even after everyone is dead and Louis is the only old mafia guy left,
he's not in charge.
He's not in charge. He's not the head of the mafia. The dude's daughter is.
Yeah, like Louis definitely could have let well enough alone. There was no, because the entire reason, like, Louis, the whole thing, Louis was so like trying to orchestrate something with Ghost Dog to keep Ghost Dog. It really was trying to keep from killing Ghost Dog, having to kill Ghost Dog. But everyone's dead. But why does he have to kill Ghost Dog now? Well, it's because there's new blood within the organization, and
no loose ends. He's still a loose end.
Yeah, no loose ends. You can say, like, the daughter, it's, you just have to. It's revenge for her dad. Um, and then at the very, very end, we see Pauline reading the Harakiri, and she is you see a quote, and it's through her, um, in her voice, and you do get this kind of interesting but grim
Yeah, real grim.
feeling that she's going to take up the ghost dog mantle.
Yeah, kind of cursed her with the ghost
Yeah.
dog mantle.
There is a little bit of me that's kind of surprised that nobody made a mid 2000s sequel that's more action oriented and just doesn't get the point of Ghost Dog with her
Well,
in
and
it.
I agree that I think that speaks to how good of a movie this is that people
Yeah.
were afraid to do it. And the truth is, you could also make a good sequel with her now. Like, you could look, I don't trust Hollywood necessarily to make
No.
a good one, but there is no reason you couldn't do this movie with a female lead. And as long as you kept it meditative and spoke about current crime culture, like, I do feel like you could do it. I don't know if you should, but
Yeah, I think
there is a story there that could be told and be told as well as this one is.
perhaps. I do think that era is gone now. We look at the urban settings we
Well,
have now.
you could make
A
it
lot
about
of
cycles of violence, and you
Yeah.
can still tell a story.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, urban settings now, everything's a lot's gentrified.
There's a story there.
Yeah, well, yeah. The point of the mafia in this movie is that they're just on their way out than what they used to be. It would be interesting, but only if Jim Jarmusch did it. Like, let's face it, like the only way like anybody would accept the Ghost Dog sequel is if Jim Jarmusch did it.
I
I wouldn't trust anybody else to do that.
I would trust somebody else. I would trust. I'm going to tell you in 1 second. It's not his name. It is. Why is my brain forgetting his name? David Lowery. I think David Lowery could do it.
Perhaps. I think David Lowery is more interested in the atmosphere of his movies than he is his characters, if that
Cool.
makes
We
sense.
just watched. I don't know. In my opinion, this movie is mostly atmosphere.
Well, yeah, but I also think, like, like I said, the subtlety of the characters is a major part of this. Anyway,
I'm a big Green Knight fan, so I'm just like, oh no, I could watch that.
I know. And I'm not saying anything bad about David Lowery. Green Knight is a great movie. I'm just
if somebody could do it now, I don't think there's a lot of people. He would be the one person who I'd be like, oh, I'd be excited for his take on it.
Okay, sure. Anyway, that seems to be Ghost Dog Way the Samurai. It's just a fucking great movie. I can't think of something that I can criticize it for, really. I'm sure there's something there, but for me, it is, as somebody who loves crime films and especially love them when they're a little off kilter, when they're a little off beat. This is this is kind of a perfect movie for me.
Yeah, I am surprised at how much I liked it. And also now, like, kind of one of those bummed I hadn't seen it earlier kind of things. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I just pushed this one off for so long. It's also not always the most accessible movie. Like, it's not a movie that's just out there all the time.
Yeah, it is on the Criterion. Like I said,
I believe it's on HBO Max right now as well.
Yeah, it's on the Criterion channel. I got the Criterion disc, which has some great. It was like that disc was being made during lockdown, so you have Zoom interviews like this. One of them is Jim Jarmusch just talking to fans of the movie, which I think is interesting.
Better him than you, right, Louis? Now, what the fuck is his name?
Ghost Dog.
What?
Ghost Dog. Ghost Dog?
He said Ghost Dog.
Yeah, he calls himself Ghost Dog. I don't know, a lot of these black guys today, these gangster type guys, they all got names like that they make up for themselves. Is that true?
Sure. He means like the rappers. You know, the rappers, they all got names like that. Snoop Doggy Dogg, Ice Cube, Q-Tip, Method Man. My favorite was always Flavor Flav from Public Enemy. He got the funky, fresh fly flavor. Live lyrics from the bank of reality. I kick the flies dope, maneuver technicality. Do a dope track. I love that guy.
I don't know anything about that. But it makes me think about Indians. You know, they got names like Red Cloud, Crazy Horse, Running Bear, Black Elk.
Anyway, let's go on to recommendations.
Oh yeah, speaking of Forest Whitaker, I know you don't subscribe to this platform, but this Andor show, it's really fucking good, man.
What?
Cassian Andor.
Yeah, I've heard Andor is very good.
It's not good Star Wars content. If you want good Star Wars content, watch Tales of the Jedi, the new Clone Wars miniseries that just released. It's phenomenal as well. But it's just good. It's just, Tony Gilroy can write. And it's real good. I mean, it's from the guy who did the Bourne movies. So like it just is a good spy espionage story that happens to take place in the Star Wars universe. But It doesn't, the Star Wars has never felt more of a second thought than anything else had. He also wrote Rogue One. So like, look, it does have Rogue One energy. But again, I love Rogue One because it's like doing its own thing that doesn't really care about the Star Wars universe as a whole. It just wants to tell this story. And this is doing that on a bigger scale. People have died. People have fucked. That's not nothing. People had sex in the Star Wars thing. People canonically had sex. It wasn't they kissed after blowing something up. They get out of bed naked in the morning after they clearly fucked. There's no Jedis, there's no space wizards. It's mostly humans. There's not even a lot of alien race stuff because it's the birth of the rebellion. In the most recent episode, Saw Gerrera showed up. So Forest Whitaker is back in it. It's hard. Andy Serkis is recently got added to it, kind of in the middle of the season. You see a lot of Stellan skate. I always say because of my shirt, Stellar Skateboard. Stellan Skarsgård is in it, and surprising, amazing. Like he is in every fucking thing.
Wait, Stellan Skarsgård is a good actor?
Oh, what? And he doesn't have his dick out in this yet. Yeah, there's still like 7 more episodes. I could still see his penis. He loves to get it out there.
Look, you get a Harvey Keitel in there.
Those Skarsgårds love showing dick. And I love to watch. Mon Mothma plays a big part of it, and it is truly great. You get to spend time on Coruscant going through politics. You get to spend time seeing how the Empire became fascist from what it was. Like you actually watch fascism happen. Which is maybe relevant to 2022.
It kind of fills in the gap between Revenge of the Sith and Star Wars.
It does the thing that
New Hope
that I like the new Star Wars movies for the most part utterly fail, which is taking Star Wars and then like having it reflect modern geopolitics. The Last Jedi does it, but none of the other modern Star Wars movies do. But this really does feel like maybe we should be aware of fascism.
Right.
You spend a lot of time with the Empire and like watching how they market and how they do branding and how they turn a terrorist attack, quote unquote terrorist attack, into like how about we just assume control of the universe now? Like, how about we just take it all? How about we take away all your freedoms and we're not doing it all in one big movement? This story takes place over 5-6 years. So it really is a slow like removal of your rights. It's very relevant to today's world. So I really can't recommend Andor enough. I don't think you should necessarily give Disney more money to watch it. I do think you should find illegal ways to watch the show. It is worth watching. It is that good.
Right. Well, first off, I want to say Tony Gilroy also made one of my favorite movies of the 2000s, Michael Clayton, and I believe an underrated romantic comedy corporate spy movie, Duplicity, or Yeah, Duplicity with
I guess maybe that's a good way to put it. Tony Gilroy writes adult movies for adults, which is a rare thing in 2022. And this TV show feels like it's for adults. It is not for children. It is a grown up
right,
show talking about grown up things.
right. My recommendation this week is also a TV series. It is the first season of the Hulu series Reboot, which stars Keegan Michael Key, Judy Greer, Johnny Knoxville,
Rachel Bloom.
Rachel Bloom, yes, and fuck, his name is escaping. Paul Reiser. It is about a reboot of a TV series, um, which I think they've done takes on that, but this is, I feel like this is the smartest and funniest they've done. Rachel Bloom plays somebody who revamps this old television show about a step family dynamic, um, from the early 2000s, and everybody comes back, even the kid who's now like in his early 20s and really hasn't grown past being a child star in Hollywood.
Oh, for
Giant,
reasons that might be relevant to this week, what we do to child stars is difficult and terrible.
yes, yes. We have Johnny Knoxville plays I think a version of Johnny Knoxville that never got his shit together. They keep
Not a
making
stretch
jokes.
for him.
Yeah. They keep making jokes. How have you not been canceled yet? Judy Greer plays part of her arc is just how women are perceived in Hollywood, and her trying to keep as a quote unquote aging actress, trying to keep relevant, while
Seems
kind
like
of
a true
flailing.
struggle for Judy Greer, one of my all-time favorite actors in the
Yes.
history of acting,
Yes.
who
It,
never gets the respect she deserves because she is a woman in her middle ages, so she doesn't get to be good or she doesn't get to get meaty roles anymore, and it's
and this
depressing.
yeah, this actually becomes very meaty. Keegan Michael Key plays the guy who left the show because he wanted to have a dramatic career. Uh, and Paul Reiser plays the former showrunner. Now, that's the only thing I'm going to say about his character, because there is a kind of twist at the end of the first episode, but the dynamics become interesting throughout the show, and it's really funny, kind of sad at points.
It's from the creator of Modern Family.
Yeah,
I do know that, so I
which
know
is a little which honestly, Modern Family kind of became just an average. As subversive as it was trying to be in the late 2000s, it really
it
did just become.
that's what it became. But those first 2 or 3 seasons of Modern Family are special. Like so that's why I have been excited to watch this reboot, because you know how these shows go. Once you get after certain seasons, usually everyone who was there at the start is gone, and it's just new people doing the thing. And that show is still on TV. I think
No,
the last
that
season
ended
did
a
the
couple
last
of years
season,
ago.
but not that long ago. As
Yeah,
long
not
as
that
that
long
show
ago.
was
No.
on. So I just remember the first couple seasons of that show. I do think are really special and really good, but also for those people to be writing something aware of sitcoms. That is
Yeah,
entertaining. Like
and there's a good bit where there's these younger TV writers in the writers room, and then Paul Reiser brings in like the old crew, and I think they definitely talk about how some things are not PC anymore, da da da, but also like it eventually they all come together and just like, yeah, somebody tripping and falling is just funny. Like they might have gotten hurt, and that's hilarious. Um, so yeah, reboot. It's on. It's its entire first season is on Hulu. I highly recommend it. So Tanner,
fantastic.
do we want to try to figure out our next movie?
We should probably do that.
Yes. Now, while you do that, I'm going to do the housekeeping.
Please.
Of course, always you can find us at facebook.com, facebook.com/ I love this flick. You can find us on the podcast platforms, and my personal housekeeping, look up Fourth Street Trash on YouTube and this show on YouTube, which we will have more video episodes. I might even release the Jamie Kennedy episode that works better as a visual.
It
thing.
does. It very much does.
It does.
You know, here's what we'll do. This movie's on the list. It's unfortunately for me another crime movie. But Oppenheimer's coming out, so we should watch Memento because I've never seen Memento.
Okay. And I haven't seen it in years, and that's going to be interesting.
So I'm not excited because I'm not the biggest Nolan fan. I am excited because it co-stars Joey Pants, who is one of my most beloved people in the history of the world. So I will come with some cool Joey Pants stories that I've got. And I'm excited. I like Guy Ritchie, right? Is he in it, or is it Guy Pearce? I always get my guys.
It's Guy Pearce. Guy Ritchie is the director of Snatch and Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Got it. And Guy Pearce is
King Arthur.
But yeah, we'll watch Christopher Nolan's Memento.
Yeah, we're sticking within that area of the late 90s, early 2000s, because I think this is 2000, 2001, maybe. And I think it's going to be interesting to kind of map out Nolan's career. We'll do some sort of temporal pincer movement on his career. I don't know what that means. I haven't seen Tenet.
You son of a bitch. You should also do Tenet homework for this because it's pretty cool and worth talking about.
All right. I mean, it's just okay.
It's just 4 hours of a Christopher Nolan movie. You can get through it. And you only have to watch it twice because halfway through it, you see the whole movie again backwards. Anyways, pretty cool movie. You should watch it.
All right. Fine. Anyway, thank you all for listening to this show. And remember, if your head gets cut off, you should be able to do one more action before you die. Remember that, folks. I'm Josh Pfizer.
I'm Tanner Randall.
Keep living the way of the samurai.
Woof, woof, woof.